saying the gospel. The important thing is, the Lord will never pin us to our past. The Lord is always offering a future to humankind. And what better example do we have than St. Paul himself, no? Remember in Galatians 1:13, he says, "You've heard of my former way of life in Judaism, how I persecuted the church of God beyond measure and tried to destroy it." This man was a persecutor who was converted later on into a propagator of the faith. Every saint has a past. Every sinner has a future. And what better example can we think of for a sinner with a future than Simon? Simon, who became Peter. Do not be afraid, Jesus says. When Simon was amazed because of the huge catch and realized what this man before him was up to, suddenly he was gripped by that fear, as if he wanted to say, "You have the wrong man, Lord. I am not a saint. Please look for somebody else." And Jesus says, "Do not be afraid." Jesus' way of saying, "I'm not looking for a saint. I know who you are." You know, the cliche says it, God does not call the qualified. He qualifies those whom He calls. From now on, you will be a fisher of men. In Gaudete et Exsultate, Pope Francis proposes the Beatitudes, and he calls it a spirituality. The Beatitudes, the spirituality of the Beatitudes as going against the current. Going against the current. All the Beatitudes are paradoxical statements. Like I said, it's not really a process from brokenness to blessedness. Huwag tayong mag-ilusyon. You won't become blessed. You won't become blessed from brokenness and then hindi ka nababalik. You remain broken in your blessedness. It is precisely that paradox which defines the spirituality of the Beatitudes. In chapter 4 of Gaudete, he presents 5 signs of holiness. And I would recommend very highly that you dwell on that chapter. First, he says, first sign is perseverance. Kaya delikado yung mga umaatras kagad, no? The quitters who cannot persevere. Konting challenge lang, umaatras kagad. Second sign is joy, in a sense of humor. Alam natin lahat na magbigat ang mga gawain natin, and after a while, we become joyless. When we're miserable, we will just make other people miserable. The third is paresia, the Greek word that Pope Francis loves to mention. Boldness, passion, the courage to stand for what is truth. Fourth is living in community. And kanina, Father Elmer, when he's reviewed your activities, he recalled the time when we celebrated the year of the parish as a communion of communities. I am amazed that you also applied this in the school setting, how to create an atmosphere of a communion of communities within the school. And the last is to be always in constant prayer. I'll go back to this prayer later on when we talk about spiritual battle. He ends that book with a final chapter on spiritual battle. You know that the Catholic Bishops' Conference of the Philippines came up with a pastoral exhortation recently. And then the opening lines, what about the spiritual battle? We said, we do not We do not fight a battle with human beings or with flesh and blood. Our real enemies are spiritual enemies, and the real battle that we fight is spiritual warfare. Wala tayong taong kalaban dito sa mundo. Wala tayong kalabang tao dito sa mundo. Kahit ituring pa nila tayong kalaban, we will never treat them as the enemy. Ang kalaban natin palagi ay ang demonyo. And the arena of battle is so wide for the devil. And I draw a lot of inspiration from the Jesuits for this because I call them the masters in discernment. But you cannot have discernment without prayer. Only through prayer can we grow in the gift of discernment. Usually, our students, if you tell them to pray, they would know what prayer means as talking to God. Praying as talking to God. If we really want to make our students mature in prayer, I believe we have to teach them more basically that prayer is about listening to God. Praying as more basically listening, opening to God, as Father Tomlin says. And discernment, I would call it spiritual intelligence, the capacity to sort out among the many voices. Kasi ang buhay natin dito sa mundo parang hampas palayo. You know that game, hit the pots? When I was a little boy, I remember I always won in that game because I had a secret. It was my father who taught me. Ang sabi niya, alam mo, Ambo, kung gusto mong tamaan, yung palayo. Kasi, paiikot-ikutin ka pa pipirinin ka, di ba? Tapos, lilituin ka, hanggang sa hilong-hilo ka na, paano mo tatamaan yung palayo? Ang sabi niya, pag nagsimula ka ng lumakad, sumisigaw lahat ng tao sa paligid mo, huwag mo silang pakikinggan. Alam mo naman yung boses ko, sa akin ka lang makinig. Pag sinabi kong, diretso, kanan, kaliwa, hampas ka agad. At lagi ako nananalo. Because I listen to my Father's voice. I think prayer is like that. And discernment is the capacity to sort out among the many voices, to know your Father who's leading you to your direction. Second statement, holiness of life is what our common priesthood is about. The priesthood of holiness of life. It is our basic Christian calling. I have to be honest with you na hindi ako ganyan kakomportableng calling myself a priest. I was educated in the theology of the priesthood by Father Catalino Arevalo. And it was from Father Arevalo that I heard that before we can understand ministerial priesthood, we have to first of all situate it within the common priesthood of the faithful. In the New Testament, there is no other priesthood except the priesthood of Jesus Christ. And the next time you hear about priesthood, it's already applied to the priestly community, to the priestly people, the common priesthood. And so the sharing that priesthood is common. It is our basic Christian calling. We're called to share the priesthood of Christ. And that common priesthood of the faithful is basically what holiness of life is about. How we are called to live the priesthood of Christ, in whom the offerer and the offering are one. Kasi in the Old Testament, priesthood was about making an offering. And distinguished the priest from the victim, the offerer from the offering. The priest in the Old Testament is a mediator of a covenant between God and His people. And when that covenant is somehow broken, the priest has to do some mediating through offering of sacrifice. And the writer of the letter to the Hebrews sort of ridicules that and says, you know, look at that situation. The sinner is not even hurt in the offering, in the sacrifice that's being made. The priest is not hurt. The sinner is not hurt. It's the victim that's hurt. In the new dispensation, Jesus will not say, I will offer a lamb for you. Rather, He will say, I will be the lamb. I'll give my life for you. My sacrifice is my life. So participation in Christ's priesthood is about living a Eucharistic life. My offering to God is not my token time, talent, and treasure. Even if all of that is very significant, important, but rather my whole life. Kaya, nung namura na naman tayo, dahil daw tinatax natin ang ating mga miyembro, pag nag-react ako, sabi ko, parang gusto kong mag-text sabihin, Sir, baka hindi kami yung tinutukoy mo. Kasi sabi niya, these Catholics, why are they taxing their members? Meron daw tayong system of taxation. Sabi ko, wala akong alam na system of taxation in the church. Ang alam kong may system of taxation ay yung humihingi ng ikapu. O yun, taxation yun. 10%. In the Catholic Church, we do not ask for 10%. Because we believe that God is not asking for 10%. God is asking for 100%. Ano ka ang 10%? That is the priesthood of holiness of life. Whatever you offer to God is just token. They are called token thanks offerings in thanksgiving to God. Thanksgiving for the many gifts we receive from God. This is the spirit of Old Testament priesthood and sacrifice. Meron akong kaibigan, nung birthday niya, bago daw siya nag-birthday, napansin niya yung anak niya, hingi ng pera sa kanya. And on the day of his birthday, binigyan siya ng regalo. Ang sabi niya sa anak niya, saan mo binili ito? Saan ka kumuha ng pera pang bili mo nito? Mahal nito ah. Ang sabi daw ng bata, sa iyo po, Daddy. Totoo naman daw siya kasi napaka-thoughtful nung anak niya. Kahit yung pinambili niya, sa kanya din galing. Siguro ganyan talaga. Ang Diyos siguro ganyan din sa atin. Ano bang pwede nating ialay sa Diyos na hindi sa Diyos nang galing? Diba? All of it is token. That is why, at the presentation of gifts, yung sinasabi natin, Blessed are you, Lord God of all creation, for through your goodness, we offer you the bread we received. Ang inialay namin sa inyo din munang galing. Dahil ba sa Diyos din ang galing, huwag na tayo mag-alay. It's really token. Dahil binibigyan tayo ng Diyos, parang sapat na sa Diyos na makita niya, natututo rin tayo magbigay katulad niya because we're supposed to be like God. Kaya yung magulang, lahat binibigay sa anak, pag nagbigay yung anak niya, kahit sa kanya din galing, tuwa siya. Kasi marunong na rin magbigay ang anak. So I preempted this, what we say at the presentation of gifts. We say the same thing, fruit of the earth and work of human hands, it will become for us the bread of life. From a token offering to an offering of self. And I hope you understand why I chose that photo in the background. You know him? He was going to offer the Mass. Well, actually, he had offered it already. I think he was killed after the Mass. No? Yeah. So from a token offering to an offering of self. The Eucharist is about becoming what we eat. And so we can understand ministerial priesthood only in that context of the common priesthood. In the ministerial priesthood, the presider acts in the person of Christ, so that all who commune with Christ can also be Christified. Yun pala ang papel ng priestly ministry or ministerial priesthood. It is directed to common priesthood. A ministerial priesthood that does not build up the common priesthood is fake. It's totally useless. It is connected to the common priesthood. You're familiar with that vocabulary that was popularized by the song of Father Manuling Francisco, di ba? Half of sanctification is Christification. I preempted that. Only in Jesus Christ is our humanity fully united with divinity. And I would refer you to Colossians chapter 1, verses 15 to 20 for this. Remember that Christological hymn? He is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn of all creatures. For St. Paul, to be holy is to live in Christ, to be part of the body of Christ. He says, I live by faith in the Son of God who loved me and has given up his life for me. And so Christ is multiplied in his disciples. Christ is multiplied in his disciples. I know that we have fellow Christians, especially among Pentecostals and Evangelicals, who are scandalized about our veneration of the saints. And madalas yung reaction nila, bakit ganun-ganun naman ang pagpaparangal ninyo sa mga santo at santa na yan? Mga tao din naman yun na katulad ninyo. Parang